They're back. Welcome into week 7 of Game Day Recap. I'm your host, Haley Sutton. You'll meet the crew in just a minute. For 1 second, we thought that the Chiefs were done. They were cooked as the dynasty's dead. Not so fast, my friends. They get up with a humongous win over the Raiders. They shut them out 31-0. Big win there for Kansas City. By the way, you wanted more passing perfection from Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. You get that. He has nearly a perfect game as they take down the Vikings. The Jets, Jets. Unfortunately, still no win for the guys in green. Maybe something coming sometime soon for Aaron Glenn. But in the meantime, the Colts, Pete Prisco, needed more from them last week. He said if they can beat the Chargers, he'll have some nice things to say. So let's see what our Pete Prisco has to say about those Indianapolis Colts as we welcome you to our set. We've got Pete right across. You thought I was going to leave that hanging? I can't wait to hear what you got to say about Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts. We've got our GM on set, Carthon. Nice to see you. And you'll notice no Damian Harris, but that's okay. We've got Danny Kanell.
In his place,
right. We've got our guy Danny Kanell coming back with us. You just got back from a big college trip, though.
We were out in
How was Wisconsin?
Madison was awesome. Too many cheese curds and spotted cow beers. But the Ohio State Buckeyes were the story. They looked awesome. It was fun.
They do look awesome. I am sure that the Raiders maybe could use their offense. But we're not starting with the Raiders, guys. What the heck did we just watch? The Broncos and the Giants game. Unbelievable finish. Somehow, some way, Bo Nix pulls this one out. He goes from a 0 for most of the game to a hero going forward. We'll show you some of the action here, guys, because this was all but lost for the Broncos. So then you have Bo Nix and the team turning up. He uses his legs to keep the guys in contention here. Danny, when you're watching this with Bo Nix, what's going through your mind?
Just how bad of a first half he had, and then be able to get the team, bring them all the way back down the field. And then Jackson Dart did his best, impression late in the game with a chance to win and potentially have a fourth quarter comeback of his own. But the Broncos were having none of it.
Of course, it comes down to a field goal, and the Broncos on the winning side of this one as they take down the Giants. We certainly thought that it was going to be some more magic from Jackson Dart. Pete, I want to talk about them, but first, let's talk about the Broncos and what they were able to do with what they did today. What'd you think?
When you can come back in a game like that, it speaks volumes about you as a team. I know you're at home and you're playing a team you're supposed to beat, but you look up in the fourth quarter and you're down 26-8. What do? And your quarterback hasn't played very well, and all of a sudden he turns it on, makes plays in the fourth quarter. Remember, we saw him do that a couple weeks ago against the Eagles in the fourth quarter, and we thought, okay, Bo Nix is back again. For most of that game, he looked lost. He threw for 89 yards in the first half, and we were sitting in the green room. We're talking about him. They got a Bo Nix problem. And then when the lights go on and he has to make plays, he made the plays. So credit to him. But I'm still not sold yet on him being able to be that guy when you need him to make the plays the most.
I mean, your cousin, Cortland.
My cousin.
He made plays when they needed him to make plays. That big catch to get them down in an even better field goal situation. And then Marvin Mims, you see him as a 5'9", 5'10" guy, but he's making big plays, contested balls, and going vertical to make these plays. And again, we talked about the quote-unquote Bo Nix problem, but it was the guys around him that all stepped up and made plays when they needed to put them in position to score.
I thought we just witnessed the best game of the season. We saw 33 points scored by the Broncos in the fourth quarter alone. We saw lead changes in the last couple minutes. It was incredibly entertaining unless you're a New York Giants fan and you were thinking they could pull off this miraculous upset. It was really like the tale of 3 quarters for one team and 1 quarter for another, because in the first half, my big question mark was, where is this Denver defense, which is supposed to be so dominant? And they're getting carved up by a couple of rookies in Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart, and you're thinking, all right, are they ever going to wake up? And then when they needed to get the stops the most at the end of the game, they were able to get them. They got the big interception, which clearly was a rookie mistake. We use that term all the time for a reason. It's when young rookie quarterbacks do something they're not supposed to do. I know it's third down. You have a lead. You're trying to protect it. You think you can make a play. You simply cannot do that if you're Jackson Dart in that situation. Gave the Broncos the ball back. Those are what allows those types of comebacks to happen. It's going to be a learning experience for them, but I do think you have to tip your cap to Sean Payton and the Broncos and Bo Nix and that defense for showing some incredible mettle in that game. And I think that's what really good football teams do. And unfortunately for the Giants, that's what bad football teams do, or young, inexperienced teams do in situations like that.
If we stay on the side of the Giants for a moment, because I think we were all like, oh my gosh, is Jackson Dart going to do this? This is going to be his moment. But obviously it doesn't pan out. Talk to me, I guess, about the confidence in this room when you're going through the roller coasters of a rookie quarterback who sometimes you're going to get those magic performances and sometimes you're going to get mistakes like we saw today.
It's like Danny said, it's one of those situations for this young football team that it would have been great to finish this off with a win, right? It would have been another morale boost, as if they didn't already need more confidence because they have that in their two-headed monster. But this is something for them to learn from and how to close out and finish a game, because the offense did their part. The young fella drove the ball down, they scored, put them up with 30 seconds left. Unfortunately, he didn't play defense. And so that was the situation. And I hate to even equate it to this. I coach a 8U flag football team.
Oh, no.
We got smoked in the tournament yesterday, lost all 3 games. But was in another tournament today. I didn't coach, and they won both games today.
Oh my God!
But this was something
I didn't see you, Wally Pip.
But this was something we talked about yesterday with the kids. Like, this is adversity, and you're going to be better for this, and you're going to learn from this, and you'll play better tomorrow. And I think, Haley, you were right there when I was talking to my kids about how the game went, and they were excited and even said, like, we learned from yesterday. So it'll be the same thing for this Giants team.
You called them out also, too, because I think one of your kids was bragging about the touchdowns, and you're like, okay, but how many tackles did you have? What'd you do on defense? And he was like, all right, I can do it.
Because I coached the defense.
What a downer you are. Oh, my God, let the kid enjoy
Right?
himself.
Let him celebrate a little bit.
I did my best Pete impersonation.
Yeah, well,
Okay, there we go.
By the way, we get into Jackson Dart, and he went and got the game-winning to go-ahead touchdown, but he didn't do anything. I mean, he had a pass interference penalty. Well, he had a roughing the passer penalty and a pass interference penalty, and Sean Payton went on the field and got another penalty that gave you an extra yard, and then he scored. So, yeah, it would have been a game-winning drive, but it really didn't do anything. But they have to be thrilled by what they're seeing from him. Thrilled. They have their guy. And that's when you come out of a game like that, you go to Denver and you're on the road against arguably one of the best defenses in the league. You know, people will compare them to the 85 Bears as much as they sacked the quarterback, and we said that last week. And all of a sudden you go out there and you look up and the quarterback's playing well as a rookie on the road in that environment. Don't worry about it, Giants. You lost the game, but you have your quarterback. And I think you have your quarterback, and you're probably going to keep your coach now, too, as well.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Are we feeling like Brian Daboll bought himself another week, another season?
I think he's buying himself another season. I think when you have a rookie, I think if you have a rookie quarterback who's making progress throughout the season, why would you make the change to go start all over again with a new system?
We saw 3 other teams do it, though, which I think was a total mistake. I will say this. We have 10 games left. That's a lot of football to remain to be seen.
But they're getting better.
I think they clear, and I agree with you. From what you've seen so far, you have to be so enthusiastic. I thought it was huge for Wan'Dale Robinson to step up. You know, in Malik Neighbors' absence, all of a sudden Daniel Bellinger, they're having some tight end production. So I thought those were all good things, but there is still a lot of football left. But I think right now you have to feel really good about Jackson Dart paired with Brian Daboll. I thought Mike Kafka called a really good game for the first half and maybe 3 quarters, but they'll learn. But I think what you want to see is to continue this confidence that is there, because it's almost a naivete. They don't know any better because you got these young bucks that are out there running around making plays, which can burn you sometimes. As long as they keep their confidence and playing with this freedom and excitement, it's an energy that you can see is very palpable, then I think all signs point to, yeah, you're going to give them another year.
And to that point, Danny, that's the gift and the curse of having these young fellas. Because even Jackson Dart moving around, he was able to hit Bellinger downfield. Now, he might have missed him on the initial read.
He did.
But him moving around drew the defense up, and that's what he's able to do. What he's able to do with his legs helps create the explosives downfield because, like you said, they don't know any better. So he's just playing football, and that's the best part of what they have going right now. It'll
be a good test. The Giants get to take on the Eagles again, their second time in, 3 weeks at this point, so that'll be a fun one at Philly. And as for the Broncos, they host the Cowboys in a couple of weeks, or next week, I guess. So we will keep our eye on those teams. Let's talk about the Colts, Pete, and how impressed they were. Last week when we sat here, you said you needed to see them beat this Chargers team before you recognized that they were a solid team. And I don't want to make this like an I told you so thing, but what did you see from the Colts today that has you believing?
I bow down to the Indianapolis Colts. I bow to you. You've made me eat my words. If you could put some hot sauce on them, I eat them just like that. I'm a believer. I'm a believer. You go on the road against the Chargers. Now, the Chargers aren't the same team. They're banged up in a lot of spots. But you go on the road and dominate the way they did, and they did whatever they wanted to for most of that game on offense. Daniel Jones did his thing. Jonathan Taylor did his thing. The offensive line dominated up front. I love what they've done. They make plays in the passing game. They can run it. Jonathan Taylor has to put his name. In fact, both of them, Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor, put their names in the MVP conversation. This team is for real, and when you can score like they score, it makes it playing defense a lot easier.
That's exactly where I was going, and I'm glad you said it. And I know my bias when it comes to the running back position. But why can't Jonathan Taylor's name be mentioned in these top 5 conversations for MVP? And because we talk about MVP, most valuable player, and particularly most valuable player to your team, there are still people that question where Daniel Jones is, right? And what he's going to be able to do in the latter part of the season. Well, we know this offense runs through Jonathan Taylor. And if he is on, then this whole entire offense is on. Because the way they're built, they can hit the explosives downfield with Alec Pierce, Tyler Warren, what he's able to do underneath Michael Pittman, and Josh Downs didn't play today. And he's a threat when you talk about these option routes and being able to create in those third and short situations, but it still all revolves around Jonathan Taylor. And so why can't his name be mentioned? Because right now when we talk about MVP, it's all quarterbacks.
But it usually is, right? Like the MVP
is
a quarterback award, let's be real.
It is, but I think with the level in which some of these backups have been playing with these teams, you're starting to see that it's a team game.
Start the alarm. The running back defender is here.
I'll back him up, and I'm a quarterback.
I'll back him up, too. I'm with him on that one.
I don't think Saquon got enough love last year. I know he got snuck into that conversation late, but I do think Jonathan Taylor, I think it's similar because I think he means as much to this Colts team as you saw Saquon mean to this Eagles team last year. And it is interesting because I look at this team and I'm with you guys. I think they're going to win the division because the division is kind of falling apart. What's happened outside of there? They could be the number 1 seed in the AFC, so they should have an incredible home field advantage there at Indy. But I do think this is relying on Jonathan Taylor. They better hope that he stays healthy because I still look at Daniel Jones and I still need Heats to prove over a more consistent period of time that those days from the New York Giants of inconsistency are behind him. In their one loss, he did have a couple interceptions against the Rams where you saw a little bit of that old Daniel Jones crop up. So I still think they need to kind of continue to prove to everyone, Pete and everybody who just looks at him just a little bit of speculation, say, all right, I just need to see you continue to do this. But I think as long as Jonathan Taylor is healthy, this team absolutely is a Super Bowl candidate.
And I think that's a conversation we were having earlier, right? It's like, okay, Daniel Jones is playing really well, but what if something happens to him versus what if something happens to Jonathan Taylor where your confidence lies a little bit more?
I'd still rather have the quarterback. I'm sorry. He's the MVP of the team, but you'd rather have the quarterback. I mean, would you rather play with Anthony Richardson in the backup running back or Daniel Jones?
Daniel Jones all day with a backup running back all day long.
Of course.
But I do think that does
That's why it's an MVP.
But I think
that's why it's a quarterback award.
I think that lessens their expectations, though.
Danny didn't even let Pete finish.
I know.
I knew where he was going. Kanye West. He said, I'm not going to let you finish.
But he's not wrong, though. You'd rather play with Daniel Jones in the backup running back than Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson.
And I'll say this, and I don't disagree, but what I'll say is right now Daniel Jones is in an unbelievable situation because it's not dependent on him, right? He doesn't have to go win the game for the Colts. He just has to make the plays that are called for him, which is why you see Shane Steichen calling the game the way he is. This is the best we've seen Shane Steichen call an offense since he's become a head coach. With this team because he finally has a guy that can operate the system the way he needs it to, but he's also has that threat in the backfield, and off of that, he can make those plays and those.
I was going to say, I could call plays with Jonathan Taylor running the ball like that. It opens up everything,
and a really good offensive line, by the way. And here's the other thing. We talk about awards. Shane Steichen is the coach of the year right now.
We talked about that last week. Yeah,
right now.
He is doing so well. Real quick, because we've got to hit a break here. What's the vibes on the Chargers? Just real quick, because we're tight on time.
They're banged up. I think their offensive line, they got to get healthy. Justin Herbert can't carry
But not just that. Defensively, they have problems. They got problems.
I've just never bought what the Chargers are selling.
Because they're charging.
They are charging. Who's got it better than Jim Harbaugh's Chargers?
A lot of teams.
A lot of teams at this moment. All right.
A lot of bodies.
A lot of bodies. Let's take a break here on Game Day Recap. Plenty more to talk about. You talk about guys having better days than Jim Harbaugh. Mike McDaniel, certainly not one of them. Is it time to fire the head coach in South Florida? Can you get rid of the quarterback too? We're breaking down the Dolphins situation after this. Welcome back to Game Day Recap, Week 7 edition. Boy, the seat gets hotter and hotter. I don't know how much hotter it can get at this point in South Florida for head coach Mike McDaniel. Another loss. This one felt different, though, guys. It felt like the Dolphins really just didn't have anything to play for out there. They lose to the Browns, which makes matters worse. And so now we've got to discuss what's next for this South Florida team as we welcome you back into our CBS Sports HQ studios. Haley Sutton alongside Danny Kanell, Carthon, and our guy Pete Prisco over there. This conversation isn't new to us, fellas. We've been talking really since the preseason and in the offseason and beyond about when they should make a coaching change here. So we always try to push the story forward. But today, for me, was the first time that it felt like Mike McDaniel realizes that this was too much out of his control. During halftime, he was talking to Aditi Kinkhabwala, and his halftime, he was asked, what are you going to do in the second half? And he's like, well, we just got to stop making all these self-inflicted wounds and we'll be all right. But Pete, that's been the conversation with this Dolphins team, is that they are not good and they continue to make mistakes and the coach is not doing anything about it. So where do we go from here?
Well, you also have to put a bullseye on the quarterback. I mean, let's be real. This is a quarterback who they gave a big contract extension to, thought he was their franchise, put up big numbers when they were the fun, wide-open, fast offense, and now all of a sudden he can't make plays. And he threw a pick six, probably should have thrown a second pick six that was intercepted in return for a point blank for points, setting up the Browns' easy score. So we all know Mike McDaniel's going. I mean, that's when it happens, how it happens, we don't know, but he's going. I assume Chris Greer is going as well. We don't know when, but he's going to go. What about Tua? Is the new staff, the new regime, the new GM, is he going to be sold on Tua? Have you seen anything from Tua right now that would make you believe he was their franchise quarterback, the way he's playing right now? And it hasn't been just this year either. There's also the injury concerns. There's also, you want to talk about it, and we called him out for it last week, the leadership issues, and he came out this week and apologized after saying what he did. I just don't think it's a very good situation. It starts at the top, it trickles down, and if I'm Stephen Ross, I'm looking at the entire thing and thinking, you know what? I should have a fire sale starting at the trade deadline. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Zach Sealer, whatever I can get for him, you're going. And then we'll see what you go. If somebody offers me a first-round pick for Waddle, I'll trade him too. Because the reality is this team is going nowhere. There's going to be wholesale changes. They need to make changes. And you look at coach, quarterback, general manager, I think all of them are in question.
We just talked about it in the last segment. Would you rather have this starting quarterback, backup running back? Seeing Tua play puts more of an emphasis on why you have to have a quarterback. They turned the ball over 4 times today, and he accounted for all 4 of those turnovers. Pete said it should have been another pick six, right? That would have made it 5. But he threw 3 picks, fumbled once, but fumbled a total of 3 times today, right? Completed right at 100 yards on the day. And this was a game where weather was going to affect, right? It was heavy winds to start the day. It was rainy. You have 2 quarterbacks who don't have strong arms as is. And so you knew they were going to have to rely heavily on the run game. And the Browns were able to do that, right? Because they just leaned on what they do well. And coming into the season, we knew that the Dolphins could run the ball or should be able to run the ball. Just schematically, they should have been able to run the ball. But for whatever reason, they have not featured the run game. They just continue to put the ball in Tua's hands and allow him to throw the ball. And as we've seen, and don't criticize me, Tua, it's facts, the turnovers have come in bunches.
It is interesting that ever since that reporter asked him about throwing interception in bunches and he scoffed at it, that seems like that's all he's done. I mean, this is his 5th game with 3 or more interceptions in his career, his 3rd this season. And so obviously, Danny, when you look at the quarterback, that's a lot of the responsibility. Take me, I guess, inside that locker room as well when you've got a Tua, right? Because Tua was the one, and Pete, you can attest to this, Tua was the one coming into training camp that said the culture is fine. I've fixed things with Tyreek Hill. We're okay. And then you have him last week saying, well, now the leadership is a problem. So from a player standpoint, a player in that locker room, how do you get past what we've seen over the last couple of weeks?
But not just a player, quarterback.
Right.
Fair.
This locker room is broken. It could not be any clearer. Is anybody surprised what we saw today? Did that surprise anybody? That to me was the least surprising.
It surprised Mike McDaniel.
Oh, yes, of course.
It did surprise Mike McDaniel.
That today was the least surprising outcome of any game we saw today. And that speaks volumes about how broken this locker room as far as leadership, culture, respect for your head coach, all of it. The quarterback issues, it's all out there. Because not only did he turn it over, he's also throwing ambulance balls out there. He almost got Malik Washington killed by putting him out. And it just looked like Tua is just kind of mailed it in himself. And Mike McDaniel looks like a lame duck coach who knows he's going out the door. So I totally agree with you guys. I think you've got to tear this thing down all the way down to the studs and build from scratch, next year with a new coach, new general manager, a new quarterback. Fernando Mendoza is from the South Florida area. He'd be perfect in case you want to know who they should go get.
Already.
Yes, I mean, just go make that move happen. But it's so evident, and I don't know how you repair some of the damage that's been done with relationships. It is a relational business. It's a relational locker room. That's the way it should be. The healthiest locker rooms are where you build up trust in one another and you play hard for each other. You don't throw guys under the bus. You don't air out your dirty laundry. You don't throw guys out there and say, hey, this guy's not coming to meetings. This guy's late to meetings. You just handle that behind closed doors. To me, it's broken beyond repair, and it needs to be completely burned down.
But if he had a passer rating of 120 through 3 touchdown passes instead of the 24 and 100 yards passing, 100 yards, 3 picks, 24 rating, it's terrible.
And I think you make a great point, because you said if you have a new coach or a new general manager who's going to want to inherit Tua, I don't think anybody does because of the injury history. Like, you have to call a game plan worried about, what if he takes too many hits to his head. You better have a great backup situation. And I do think there's a crisis of confidence that Tua's had throughout his career. When you heard what happened at the end of the Bowles era, when it was not the Todd Bowles era, the
Flores.
Brian Flores era, when he was too harsh on him and too critical of him, all of a sudden his confidence was cratered. Now we're back at a place where it looks like his confidence is cratered. It's way too much of a roller coaster ride.
What would Tua be on the market? If I'm a GM question. Tua's on the market. You can trade for him. What are you giving up for him?
If I'm taking on the contract?
If you need
4 years, 212.4 roughly is the contract.
I'll say this. Tua is a system quarterback.
Right.
And if I'm not running a version of that Shanahan offense, I'm not interested in Tua, right? Because you have to tailor the offense to what he does well, which is on time, timing throws, those in-breaking routes. That's what he does. Instinctually, that's what he does. So for me, if asking from as a GM standpoint, if I'm in that Shanahan tree, I would consider it maybe for a late round, but I have to be in desperation.
A late round pick.
Late round pick.
Yeah.
I got to be because
it.
It's not just the player and it's not just the draft compensation. There's going to be another conversation about the contract.
Of course.
And how much are we taking on? Are the Dolphins willing to pay some of that to get rid of him?
Eat some of it.
And so that's going to further the conversation along, but it depends on my system and how desperate I am to for a quarterback.
If they don't fire Mike McDaniel, I think he should bench Tua and put in Quinn Ewers.
I was actually going to ask you that because you mentioned Fernando Mendoza.
That's to me how you show your players that Tua is no different than anybody else. If he doesn't perform, he gets benched, because that's life as a player in the NFL for most people. But you're getting special treatment, as we've seen from Tua throughout the Mike McDaniel era, since he took that FaceTime call and said, I'm here for you. I think if he benched him and let Quinn Ewers go out there and play, I think it would send a message to that locker room.
You did mention, I did actually want to follow on that, so I'm glad you brought it back up. You mentioned Fernando Mendoza. I know you kind of just threw that out there, but Quinn Ewers is on the team. He did get some play today. Mike McDaniel said that he won the backup conversation. Is there a world where you could see Quinn growing into that unit, or right now he's just kind of a backup?
That might be a reason to play him, to see, all right, let's find out what we have. Maybe you stumble into somebody who's a diamond in the rough that you got in later rounds, and then you find out, all right, do we need to go spend a top pick on a quarterback next year? So I think it's worth the very least of letting him go out there and see if he can do it.
But here's the thing, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Haley.
All good.
Who's making that call?
That's what I mean.
Because if we're talking about moving on from the GM and moving on from the head coach, who is Quinn Ewers?
That's what I was going to say. Can you imagine?
For?
Can you imagine? Hey, Steven, by the way, I know we all might be out here, but we're going to sit Tua down and play Quinn Ewers. The hell you are!
Tua Tagovailoa, the first quarterback with 3 interceptions in back-to-back games since Phillip Rivers did it in 2019. The Dolphins are off to a terrible start. I do want to put a bow on this conversation really quick and talk about the Browns. It was a big win. I know it wasn't sexy, guys, but they do get a win. Rand, real quick, your thoughts on Cleveland and Quinshon Judkins behind you.
You know me. You know where I'm going with it.
See how I lobbed you for that?
He went right to the running back.
Little shovel pass to my running back.
And I'll take it and dunk it. They have the formula. You have a really good defense and you have a strong running game, and you don't need the young quarterback to do too much, and they showed that today.
3.4 per rush.
It don't matter. He scored 3
They didn't
touchdowns.
do anything. They just sat on
3.4
it.
per rush.
And in that weather where you knew it wasn't going to be a threat to throw the ball downfield.
Yep.
We're going to leave it at that. We're going to leave it at that. The Cleveland Browns get a big win. The Dolphins get a big fat L, and potentially their head coach might be on his way out. We will wait to see if and when that happens. In the meantime, let's take a quick timeout here on Game Day Recap. When we come back, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense has been under a lot of scrutiny from this panel. Did Jalen do enough to impress our guys? You'll find out next. Back here on Game Day Recap here on CBS Sports HQ. Boy, could Jalen Hurts have played any better? The answer is probably not. He now has his third game in Eagles history with a perfect passer rating. You see all the things he was able to accomplish today. His fifth career game with 300-plus passing yards, three passing touchdowns, and no interceptions. He also had that huge pass down to Devontae Smith for 79 yards. That was the second longest pass of his career. And it helps when you have guys like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith coming to life. We're still waiting on Saquon Barkley to show up, but still all things for that Eagles offense trending in the right direction. Let's talk a little bit more about that Eagles offense as we welcome you back into our studios. Guys, I want to start with Jalen Hurts because it feels like the most appropriate place to go. I mean, man, we have been so critical, the collective we, not just us here on this desk, but we have been so critical of what Jalen Hurts and this offense has been able to not do given the personnel on this team. So I default to my resident quarterback here on set. How impressive is what Jalen Hurts did today?
It was huge. I don't think it's to be surprising because he's been such a gamer and has such a knack for stepping up when the Eagles need him the most. I thought this was Jalen Hurts' biggest performance since either one of the Super Bowls because he played great in their loss and he played great last year in their Super Bowl victory. And I thought just when they needed it, because it did look like times were dire, back-to-back losses, A.J. Brown's upset, he steps up and has a performance like that. It's a testament to him just being a leader of this team. When we were talking about the dysfunction of the Miami Dolphins, this is the complete opposite because this is a team that handles criticism, that handles players getting upset in the locker room, that can call each other out and get past it once they get to game day. I thought Jalen Hurts was awesome today. I think this was just him being a winner, which is the greatest compliment I think you can pay to a quarterback, is that he just figures out ways to win. When he has to hand it off to Saquon, he's more than happy to do that. When he has to tuck it and run it, he's more than happy to do that. And when he has to step up and make some big plays in the pass game, he's more than capable of doing that as well.
I think you bring up an excellent point, Danny, when you talked about him accepting the criticism. And you don't hear anything, him coming back or him being defensive about it. He accepts it, and he's here. And he does whatever it needs to be done to win a football game because at the end of the day, that's all he cares about is getting the dub. And the way he played today, you mentioned Saquon has really struggled. I think today they averaged 3 yards a carry on the day, and Jalen Hurts stepped up. And he had almost as many touchdown passes as incompletions. He only threw 4 incompletions and had 3 touchdown passes today and pushed the ball downfield. Pete talks about it a lot. Everyone throws in between the numbers, and we play all 22 guys within the numbers. No one really pushes the ball downfield. He directed traffic on a couple and pushed the ball downfield. Now, they were only 3 of 10 on third down. You wouldn't be able to tell by the way they played today, but they won today because of the downfield explosives.
Yeah, and look, they took advantage of a former teammate. Isaiah Rodgers was terrible today against A.J. Brown. He hit a couple big plays for it, but you mentioned that. I love these teams that drive the ball down the field. We're playing in an era now where completion percentages are high and yards per attempt are lower. And the reason is these coaches won't take their damn shots down the field. They're scared of their quarterbacks. And when you're scared of your quarterback, you don't allow them to do things. You say, okay, well, we can punt. Punt's not a bad thing. Well, it's better to score touchdowns than it is to punt, is it not? So I don't understand why so many teams are reluctant. I know defenses play a lot of off coverages.
That's what I was going to say. I think there's been a trend because for so long, chunk plays were such a big part of the game. And I think the evolution of defense was let's play a lot of shell. Let's keep them in front of you. Let's keep them in front of you.
But if you play cover 2, 4 verticals beats cover 2.
Yeah.
Nobody does it anymore. They're scared to allow their quarterbacks to do it. It was great to see them take advantage of their opportunities. Now, having said all that, they got to run the ball better. I mean, when you look at Barkley, 18 for 42.4 per rush. This is a guy that we talk about was in the MVP conversation last year, and they're not running the football. It was great they got what they got from Hurts today, and it's nice that he can do it, but they still have to get back to running the football.
What do you think is missing from having them have all of the pieces together? Because it feels like this.
The line.
The
It's the offensive line.
It's the line. Mailata hasn't played as well. The left guard isn't there. The center hasn't played as well. The right guard, remember, they had a change. Steen's not nearly as good as Becton, particularly in the run game. And the right tackle's been in and out, and he was back today, but he's been in and out of the lineup. So that unit was the best offensive line in football last year, and they're not the same. So that's the biggest difference.
And you have a rookie coordinator that's calling plays for the first time with this unit, and so he's still trying to figure out, how do I mask not having all of my not weapons, but my big guys up front? How can I now call a game and it not affect us? And you were talking just now about OCs not trusting their quarterbacks. I'm going to take it another place. I think a lot of these guys that are calling these plays are focused on the stats and the numbers of the stats, right? That's what they care about, because that's what's going to propel them to the next job. And so if there's a situation, because you'll see a ton of guys, they're hunting for stats. How many times are we sitting up there in that room and you're like, what are we doing? Why are we throwing the ball in this situation? Or we get cute, or we're in the gun in 4th and inches. Like, what is that? But it's because of you caring about the stats, the efficiency of the numbers, and how they look on the paper versus what you need to do to win a football game.
See, me personally, and I'm a big believer in, I'll take 373 and 1 or 2 rather than 120, none and none. And I think we've gotten to the point where we're getting the 120, none and none is becoming more the norm than the other way. And I think we need to get back. These coordinators and these play callers and these quarterbacks need to get back to taking their shots down the field.
But here's the other. These offensive coordinators, if you go look at the majority of the offensive coordinators, their histories, they're all coming from the same 3 places, right? So we're seeing some variation of the same offense out of everybody. And these defensive coordinators, who are paid handsomely, spend a lot of time in the regular season and the offseason preparing for these offenses. And if you're playing on a week-to-week basis, a guy that came from this tree and then he came from under him, and so you're seeing some variation of the same offense out of 3/4 of the league right now.
It's interesting, too, when you think about how similar all that is. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, let's put it this way. Defensive coordinators are ahead of offensive coordinators now. And it never used to be that way. And we've had history over the years. Remember, I mean, back in the day, the Chicago Bears were ahead of all the offenses, and then the Washington team, whatever they used to call them back then, they adjusted and started max protecting against that. Blitzburg. Everybody played, remember Blitzburg? They were, and then you started throwing quick throws against it. And you beat that. So it's time for the offensive coordinators to get with it.
Got to come back around.
And have to get with it and start getting creative and figuring out ways to beat that off coverage.
What would the message then be to a Vikings team who is maybe having some questions at quarterback? They're supposed to have this elite defense, an elite defensive coordinator in Brian Flores, and yet they're on the losing side of this one. What's the message to the Vikings?
Well, look, they're a team that actually plays different on defense. They go after people and they do blitz and play man, and he gets creative, and they got hit by a couple big plays. When you do that, you better be able to hold up at corner. And they didn't hold up at corner today, in large part because Isaiah Rodgers had a really good year, had a really bad day.
He was not the only former Eagle, I do want to say. Carson Wentz also played in this one. He is now 0-2 as a starter against the Eagles. He got beat up in this one, Danny. It felt like every time, whether it was a completion or not, he was getting hit by that defense. What's the message here for Carson Wentz, and what's the holdup, I guess, with J.J. McCarthy?
Well, that's where I was going to go, Haley, is like, why is Carson Wentz out there if J.J. McCarthy's been practicing? And I was worried about him because Carson Wentz, long history of injuries. Every time he was getting hit so hard, and it does impact your ability to make throws down the field. Clear was impacting his decision-making. I'm wondering why they're not getting back to J.J. McCarthy to kind of get back on this era, which is supposed to be his turn. I mean, they're a first-round pick for a reason. Maybe they're being ultra cautious with the injury to make sure he's 100%, but I think they've got to get back to what they were doing at the beginning of the year, and that's with J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, and we talked about it on this show. I don't know if it was last week or the week before when Wentz played really well, and we said, what do you do when he's back? Do you stick with Wentz because he's giving you the best chance to win and you're seeing what you need to see out of your offense, or do you go back to young J.J. McCarthy? So I think that question is Don't you think that experience has run its course? with the Carson Wentz experience?
Well, I think we know what we're getting out of Carson Wentz. Right? That's not changing.
Right.
That's not changing.
What you get is high and you get lows.
It's the variances.
Right.
And you're not going to get anything, and it ultimately ends up in the middle. And you saw the pick six was horrendous today. I mean, you can't do that. And he made a lot of bad decisions. Then he made a couple really good throws. That's what you get from him. But their long-term play is J.J. McCarthy at least finding out if he is the long-term play. He has to be back under center.
They've got a short week because they're going to take on the Chargers on Thursday. Do we think we see J.J. McCarthy on Thursday, yes or no, Danny?
As long as he's healthy, I think they will go back to him.
Yeah, I think so as well.
I think they go back to him.
Okay, we will expect to see J.J. McCarthy hopefully behind center, and we'll see if this Vikings team can get it going. In the meantime, though, the Eagles looking pretty good now that Jalen Hurts and that offense is coming together. Time for another break here on Game Day Recap. The Mike Vrabel revenge tour is complete. His quarterback was nearly spotless today. We're breaking down the top team in the AFC East next on Game Day. Welcome back to Game Day Recap. Don't look now, but the Patriots are streaking. You can make it 4 in a row for Drake May and New England as Mike Vrabel gets his revenge against the team that fired him. And now the team where he made a name for himself is sitting at the top of the AFC East. As you take a look at some of our teams that are on the come up and others, look at the Jets, man. A 7-game losing skid, and that is not the worst that franchise has done in their history. So let's talk about our trending teams that are going up. And then, of course, a couple that are going in the opposite direction. And, fellas, we're going to start with the Patriots. We have to start with the quarterback, Drake May, playing absolutely out of his mind at this point. It's hard to think about how old he is, Danny, and how, this is what his second year as a starter, and yet he looks every bit as polished as, dare I say, Tom Brady. I mean, I know that's dramatic.
But he's got a lot more mobility, too. I mean, he can run around a little bit, too. I mean, he looks like he's 13 years old. He's got that baby face. I liked him a lot coming out of Carolina. He was put in a tough situation last year. And this, of course, is what everybody's looking for when you make the coaching change, is that you get these types of results at some of these franchises. And I think with Drake May, you've seen the ability to run the football with Ramondre Stevenson has been huge. You give any quarterback a run game there. But to see the accuracy which he's throwing out, leading the NFL in completion percentage and making down the field throws while you're at it, is really a testament to what I thought when he was coming out was a really high football IQ. He knows where to go to the football. When he gets into trouble, he gets to his progressions. He's the total package, not to mention the ability to run the football. His second leading rusher today as well behind Ramondre. I think the Patriots have their franchise quarterback for the next decade. Drake May has lived up to everything I thought he'd be coming out of Carolina.
Even more impressive than that, Rand, is the fact that this team is 4-0 on the road this season. They've matched already the amount of wins that they've had in 1 year. I think that the Titans have had in their history. We've got a stat somewhere in here that I don't have time to get to, but either way, they're definitely trending in the right direction. Are you buying into the Patriots at this point, though? Because I know we have that conversation with the Colts where we were waiting on that qualifier. Where are you at with the Patriots?
No, I'm all in with the Patriots. This was a team that I picked very early in the season to make the playoffs, the wild card. I still think it's Buffalo's division to win, and I had this Patriots team coming in that 6th or 7th seed in terms of making the playoffs. But you talk about being able to go on the road and win football games. That is a Mike Vrabel coached team. Having been in those meetings with Mike Vrabel and the attention to detail that he requires out of his players, they're going to understand situational football from the top to the bottom. You're going to be in a room where he's quizzing and asking everyone about the game plan, and everyone in the room will hear. So when these guys go on the road, these situations pop up. This is something that they talk about every day. There are periods in practice where you practice at it, specifically with a young team like this, and you have your veterans sprinkled in. That is huge. But I want to go back to something on Drake May. The biggest thing that they did to help this young man was bringing in Josh McDaniels. Because you bring in a qualified offensive coordinator that understands how to dissect the defense, and all you have to do is listen until you earn your stripes, where you have a voice like Tom once had, and this kid is showing that he is listening. You talk about what he completed, 91% of his passes a day. That was one of the number one things I loved about him coming out, was just the accuracy in which he threw. And I'm going to throw the name out there again. Same way Fernando Mendoza plays right now.
And I love, because I don't think you can teach accuracy.
No.
He's just a natural thrower of the ball where it goes
Accuracy,
where he wants it to go.
placement.
Yep.
And then we talk about May, we talk about Diggs, we've talked about that offense a lot, but let's go to the other side of the ball, because that's where Vrabel is. He made his stripes by being a defensive coach. They added guys in the offseason: Milton Williams, Caleb Von Chason, Harold Landry, Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis. They might have the best 3-corner group in the league right now, with Davis and Gonzalez and Jones playing in the nickel. And it makes it tough to move the football on them. And they made plays today on defense. I mean, they had the touchdown when Cam Ward did his drop the football and forget about it routine. He had an interception. They're the side of the ball. They had 5 sacks. Caleb on Chason, who did nothing as a first-round pick in Jacksonville, had failed stops elsewhere, is now rushing the passer. Well, he's now rushing the passer somewhere. So they've done a great job of getting these guys as a group, the free agents, to kind of come together with what they have and really instilled a pretty good defense.
Can I ask you a follow-up? Because you said Vrabel does the quiz. Now, was that all the team and he has the players all stand up and ask them something different?
No, it's him in the team meeting room.
Yep.
And it's a mental day, right? And that's what the team meeting revolves around. Hey, Danny, on this
So
play,
in front of the whole team.
In front of the whole team.
I experienced. I got some PTSD from that because Dan Reeves, my rookie year, was old school, and he'd do it the night before a game in the team meeting. He'd be like, "All right, Kanell, stand up," and then he'd be like, "All right, on this goal line situation, what's our formation on our play action call?" And you'd have to come up with it out of nowhere. And I remember being so scared that I was going to screw it up and not get it because you just wanted to crawl in a hole. Because if you didn't get it, the whole team knew. And it was, I love that old school
Was that
mentality.
team meeting after you had your 3.5-hour dinner break when you went and snuck out somewhere?
I thought he was going to bring up the interception somehow again. So
Believe me, I used to go on the road and I'd see these guys out for 3 hours before the team meeting. I know what they were doing.
By the way, the Patriots at 5-2 have more wins this season as the Titans have had since the start of last season. They are 4-20 going back to last year. That's the stat I was looking for.
We can't
earlier.
talk about that team.
Anyway, I know. That's why we're going to move along, and we're going to talk about the Bears, something that Rand can talk about. Guys, I feel like the Bears today, especially with DeAndre Swift dealing with injury coming into this one, he was questionable, I believe, and yet he explodes out. That run game was fantastic. Pete, I'll ask you this. Because the Bears, they started 0-2, and it was like, okay, here we go, same old song and dance. Is Ben Johnson really the guy? But now they've also won 4 in a row. Who do you give the credit to in this moment? Is it Caleb Williams for taking the next step? Is it the run game for getting going? Is it Ben Johnson for sorting this all out? Who do you give that praise to?
I give the praise to Ben Johnson, and in large part because the run game is going. And that was the one thing you didn't know about the Bears. And they shuffled that offensive line. I mean, they went out and got guys. They added them in. They said, we're going to run the football. Ben Johnson said he was going to run the football. DeAndre Swift is running wild right now. I mean, if you look at what they did today, they ran wild, and I think that's the most important thing. It takes all the pressure off of Caleb Williams. He still makes plays where you go, wow, and then he'll make a play where he's getting out of a pocket when he has no business getting out of a pocket, and he'll still make a play, but you go, okay, that's a negative. So there's a lot to like about his improvement. Everything is slowed down for him. You can watch his feet, they slow down. The game is slowed down, but it helps to have that run game. And I give credit to Ben Johnson for making it work. That's what we all said that's what he wanted to do. That's the genesis of his offense. It's what it was in Detroit, and now it's making it happen. One thing about Ben Johnson, when you're up 20-14 late in the game and you have a 4th and goal from the 1-2 yard line, go up 9. Please go up 9. He had a penalty on the play, forced him to kick the field goal to go up 9. It's the right thing to do.
Rand, what can you say about this Bears defense? Because there's been a lot of conversation about this offense coming together, but they had, 4 sacks, 3 interceptions. They held the Saints to 3 of 10 on 3rd down. I mean, a pretty good day for that unit as well.
Opportunistic. Guys getting their hands on the ball. We talk about it all the time in the meeting. Tips and overthrows, got to get those. And this defense, those guys up front, they do a really good job of pressuring, and if they can't get there, they get their hands up. And then you have these big, long linebackers behind them. You have these big, tall, long corners behind them. You talk about it today. 3 interceptions, a recovered fumble. You talk about why they won the football game today is because they forced 4 turnovers and they ran for 222 yards. And so that was the reason why they won the game today. But this defense, coached by Dennis Allen, this is a Dennis Allen defense.
Revenge game.
And yes. And you can tell because the multiplicity in which he employs out there, because one week it looks like it's a 3-4 principal team, then the next week they're an even front team because they have the pieces in place to be able to move a lot of these guys around. And so this defense is really what's leading this football team, and this ground game is really getting going.
It was their first win against the Saints since 2008. They had lost 7 straight going into this one, so a big win for the Bears. Also, a round of applause to the Panthers, who are over 500 for the first time since 2021, guys. To be fair, The win comes against a really terrible Jets team, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But for the moment, guys,
that's right.
You can only beat who's on the schedule. And that's the thing, though, Rand, is like they continue to beat teams. They beat the Cowboys, who they beat last week that I'm blanking on. Whoever they beat last week, and the Dolphins, duh. How could I forget? I put Miami out of my mind.
That's like winning a bye week game. That's what that was.
But either way, Danny, when you look at the Panthers and them coming together, I know Dave Kanell is kind of soft-spoken when he talks about this team, but something that he's doing is motivating them.
Absolutely, and I think this is different than what we're talking about with first-year head coaches, like we were talking about Ben Johnson and we're talking about Mike Vrabel, because once you've already had a year and things starting to go south, boy, those doubts and those concerns start coming in, and there was a lot of question marks about Bryce Young. What would his future hold? But to be able to get the team to buy in, to be able to get some of these, because when you're one of the worst teams, you were that team that teams were supposed to beat. Now they're flipping the script and beating some of those other bad teams. I think it's huge for them. So I think they've really started to, and it's, Bryce Young did leave the game with an ankle injury today, so that's something to keep an eye on, but he's been playing better, and that was a big part of why Dave Canales was brought in there, to lift up his confidence and get him playing better. Xavier Legette is playing a lot better. So some of the pieces they put around him have also been there too. So now you got to see if you can carry this momentum, if you can start seeing a culture shift where you can start beating good teams, but that confidence is an amazing thing.
Good test next week because they get the Bills.
Yeah, and Ejiro Evero, his defense is playing lights out right now. You talk about on the day, the Carolina offense didn't turn the ball over, and the defense forced 2 turnovers, and the defense had 6 sacks, because that was been the one thing that's been missing from this Carolina defense, is being able to get pressure off those edges. And so now once they're able to start getting this pressure, whether it's winning outright or manufacturing pressure, is only going to help this team in terms of being able to create turnovers. And you saw J.C. Horn today. He's their #1 corner. He had 2 picks today. It was a nice one that he made where it looks like he kind of baited the quarterback to throw that post, and he went and got it. And so this team, although it's not pretty, and we don't know what their signature win at this point is or has been.
Shutting out the Falcons.
Yeah, I was going to say it has to be that Falcons game.
They're winning games, right? And so we talk about it. You can only win against the teams that are on your schedule, because when you look at it, it's a dub. And for a team like the Carolina Panthers, in the history of where they've been these last couple of years, every win counts.
And I want to give one guy individual flowers. Derek Brown. He's coming off a major injury, and he's been a force this year. He had 2 sacks today. He's been a power player at defensive tackle. If you're looking at early guys in terms of all-pro, Derek Brown's in that conversation. He's played really well coming off the injury.
This Panthers team has been fun. We'll see if they can keep it going. But I did mention that the win came against a Jets team that every single week, we are reaching for something to say positively about this team. We can't say anything nice about the coaching right now. The quarterback gets benched today, Justin Fields. He did get banged up a little bit, but then he was benched in favor of Tyrod Taylor. They didn't have Garrett Wilson. They don't have a run game. I mean, Rand, what is there to say about this Jets team? Is there any hope? Because this is not the worst season that they've had on record. 2020, I believe, was the season when they went 0-13 or something like that to start the year. So it can get better, but right now this feels like rock bottom.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. It can't get any worse. And so at this point, why not try to see what you have in Tyrod Taylor, and if he could bring some level of calm and balance to this offense? Because watching,
you saw him today.
Well, but even then, Tyrod at least got the ball out on time in certain situations.
He threw it to the other team twice.
In certain situations. And so right now, and I said this last week, offensively, I don't know what the identity of this offense is. And again, it didn't matter if it was Justin Fields at quarterback or Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. What is the identity of this offense? What are you trying to do offensively? You have a guy in the backfield that can hit the home run, but you don't really trust that. And so you try to drop back, you try to throw the ball, and then your #1 receiver, who isn't available to you right now, most teams are now saying, hey, we're going to put our #1 corner on him, and then good luck of having someone else beat us. So right now, it's just a clash of all things. It's a clash of not having an identity as a team as a whole, and then just not having enough talent on the football team to win a game.
I mean, when Taylor goes in, he had a couple open shots and he missed them. He underthrew them. That one was a pick, and he didn't play very well either. So you look at it, you go, okay, we could play with Justin Fields, or we could play with Tyrod Taylor. And what are you going to play with? It's not. It's a no-win situation. And look at the receivers he was throwing to: Josh Reynolds and Lazard. And I mean, look at that group. It's not very. Mason Taylor's going to be a good player, but he's a kid, and so they can't run it, they can't throw it, they can't protect. You're not going to win a lot of games that way. It's a bad situation.
This is a situation they put themselves in.
Right.
Right? In terms of the selection of who you wanted your quarterback to be, because you made a commitment to Justin Fields as your quarterback on a 2-year deal, which took you out of drafting a young quarterback. Not saying who they should have drafted, but the ability to choose one of these young quarterbacks who now in this situation, you can turn and say, let's see what the young fella has.
Right. And I think it was because he was cheaper. Was it $20 million a year? So that wasn't too bad for a starting caliber quarterback, which would be nice money to make.
I was going to say, okay,
but you
for
cannot.
yourself.
But I think the biggest thing is if that was your plan, you've got to put better pieces around him because Justin Fields is not going to be somebody that can elevate the team around him up there. So I don't think Justin Fields was ever going to be the answer. The thing I'm worried about for Aaron Glenn, because I like this hire for a former New York Jet player, somebody who came from Detroit under Dan Campbell, a defensive-minded coach. I thought he would be somebody the players would gravitate towards and he could get this culture changed in the right direction. I worry a little bit about how bad this does get. I don't think any franchise really should fire a coach after 1 year, but knowing the New York market, knowing the type of heat and criticism you get, knowing how sideways it's already been, some of the clock mismanagement already that's taken place, the Aaron Rodgers meeting comes out, choosing the wrong quarterback, all of this sort of stuff, I do think they better start seeing some glimpses of upside to come, or else I do think it might be one of those one-and-done type situations.
Yeah, I don't think this will. I'm not going to say I don't think this will be because I can't speak for anything that this organization is capable of doing.
Right.
But I will say it shouldn't be, right? Because he came into a situation where a lot of these players had been there and they are holdovers. And so in order for you to change the culture, no matter who you are, no matter how magnetic you are as a person, you need to get your guys in there and the example of what you're looking for, because a lot of the guys that are the leaders of that team were from the previous regime. Mm-hmm. And so you need to be able to bring your guys in there that can be purveyors of your message and carry your message.
You know, we talk about drafting a quarterback. They can look across the stadium and at the other locker room in that stadium where they play and realize, well, they drafted a quarterback. Do you feel better about where you are as your team right now, or would you rather have Jackson Dart? Because they were in a position they could have taken him, and they didn't. So, and the other part of that equation is this, and we talked about this a lot. A lot of people thought this draft was going to be loaded with quarterbacks this year. Mm-hmm. And so, well, we can wait. We can play with Fields, and we'll wait, and we'll go get our guy. Well, now all of a sudden, a lot of those quarterbacks have played themselves out of the first round, and some of them are hurt, and we don't know if they're coming out. So I think when you look at this situation, the Jets are in a tough spot right now because where do you get your quarterback?
Well, they're prime position right now.
Right? And it doesn't get much easier either because when you look at the schedule, they've got the Bengals coming up, they've got the Browns, and they've got the Patriots, the Ravens, the Falcons, and then the Dolphins. That game doesn't come until December 7th. So you're potentially, to your point, Rand, they're trending in the right direction to getting whatever quarterback they want. Is
Fernando Mendoza a lock like John Elway and those guys were at the top of the draft? Of course not. You still have questions about all of them.
Right. But here is because this is something that Danny said about certain quarterbacks, right? You don't have to be John Elway. No matter what, someone is going to get drafted number one. Mm-hmm. Whether you like the player or not, or you think it's too high or too low, and this is where we go wrong in terms of selecting the quarterback position. We're always going to choose the player with the upside, the guy who has these unique traits that we have not seen win football games or lift their programs because the guy has upside, versus taking the guy that you know we can win football games with if we protect them and surround them with talent. And so there are quarterbacks in this draft class, I believe, that in a perfect world, are they quote-unquote franchise guy? Probably not. And because I personally think God only made so many of those people. But they are capable players that you can win football games with if you surround them with the right talent.
So you're in favor of drafting a guy first overall who's a win with quarterback rather than a win because of quarterback.
Well, where else are you going to get your quarterback?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know.
I think Mendoza is a top-tier, elite-level, clear-cut top three no matter what year he comes out of. I think he's that good. But I don't think that's still a 50-50 proposition.
He's a little laid back, isn't he? I mean, for a guy. I mean, I mean, can you imagine him in New York? I don't see him in New York.
What they need.
I was going to say it might be a change of pace
not laid
here.
back, but he's a little.
Eli was kind of like that.
Yeah.
Eli didn't give you a lot.
We got to go. We got to go. We'll leave it there when it comes to the Jets. A lot of work to do. We don't see a win in sight anytime soon. A bad draft. Problems that the Chiefs do not have. When we come back, we're breaking down Kansas City. They are finally at full strength, and they look just as scary as everyone expected them to be. How good is Kansas City? We're breaking it down when you come back to Game Day Recap. Just like that, I remember week 1, week 2 even, we were talking about the dynasty being dead, and here we are. The Kansas City Chiefs are back in full force, and they are at the top of the table. I mean, not the top of the standings, but they feel like they should be. What was the most impressive part to you, Pete, about this win?
He's back.
I said it off the top.
Here you go, everybody. Serve notice to the rest of the NFL. Mr. Mahomes is back, and he has his weapons, and that's the most important thing. Look, over the last couple of years, when guys like Leger were calling them game managers.
Whoa.
Let me give some context, though, because I was on the set when that happened. Leger did refer to Patrick Mahomes as a game manager, but this was in the conversation. This is when Brock Purdy was also being called a game manager. Leger didn't say it as an insult.
Well, it's an
He said
insult.
It's an insult.
Being called a game
I don't think
manager.
it's an insult.
It is an insult. It's always been an insult. If you're a game manager, it's an insult. But here's the deal. He didn't have an offensive line that could protect him. We saw that in the Super Bowl. He didn't have speed down the field with all the guys in and out of the lineup. Well, you know what's back? Protection and speed down the field. And look at today. What did he complete? 26 of 35 for 286. He spread the ball around. They had big plays down the field in the passing game. This is who he is. And if they can continue to spread that ball around to that speed and protect him, this is going to be a team that's going to be right back where they were a couple years. Not last year, not the year before when they played good defense, when they were throwing up the football around and getting big plays in a passing game. I love what they look like today, and Pacheco's starting to look like Pacheco before the injury.
When they had their moment where they started to slide and they were losing games, and I'll speak French and say we. We
Not
started.
we. Not we. Don't put me in that conversation.
I just kept saying they just have to hold on to Rashee Rice's back. They just have to hold on because he really opens up this offense. And we saw the creativity early and how the different ways in which they want to get him the ball. Because, yes, he can make plays at the receiver position, and he can get open. He's shown the ability to win in one-on-one situations. But it's his ability with the football in his hands, which is something that they hadn't had. Now, we know Xavier Worthy, he can stretch the field. He's an explosive guy, but he's tiny. So he doesn't break very many tackles. Hollywood Brown of the same variety doesn't break very many tackles. Now you have a guy that you can run on these underneath crossers. You can get him on these quick screens, and he can catch the ball, break tackles, and then take it to the house. And so now this really opens up the offense and Andy Reid's creativity.
I can't believe I'm the one that has to do this, as I'm the one who usually talks quarterbacks and offense, but I think you do have to give the defense some credit too, and that's a huge piece of this puzzle as well. Chris Jones had a sack today. It was good to see him back because it was looking a little bit of a crisis there when they lost to Jacksonville, and he's on the last play of the game and they're giving up 31 points. Now they only give up 17 to Detroit. They pitch a shutout, and I know it's the Raiders, but still, Geno Smith only 67 yards through the air to hold Ashton Genty under 23 yards rushing. I thought this was a total team performance for the Chiefs. I don't think I was one of those ones that was counting them out. Did have my concerns. I think now those concerns are clearly
Here's what that
alleviated.
speed does, by the way. It actually made Travis Kelce a factor in the passing game. He had a 44-yard catch in this game.
Because again, it
right.
takes
Opens up
everyone's
everybody.
vertical, and then now Travis could play. Because I don't know that any route. I don't know if they call him to have any particular route. He's just playing backyard football, and
and we know Andy Reid isn't scared. Andy Reid isn't scared to call those plays down to feel like the rest of the league is.
No.
But here's something. We're talking about, you said it was the Raiders. The Raiders' time of possession today, 17 minutes and 52 seconds. To a Kansas City Chiefs team. That's a problem.
Well, they didn't get past the 40.
I was going to say, it's also a
That's
problem because they ran 30 plays to the Chiefs in that game, just 30 total plays there.
They have issues.
Let's talk about the issues, right? Because we've been talking about the quarterback being the problem for weeks now. I mean, Geno Smith can't buy a touchdown to his team. He only throws him to the other side. But it's not just Geno Smith. It's this defense. It feels like Max Crosby got hurt, and so you lose the life on that side. The pass catchers are also banged up, so you don't really have a lot of life there. We talked about Aaron Glenn potentially being a one and done. Do you feel similarly about Pete Carroll and the Raiders, or what's the leash like for him?
I think it's an experiment that is something to be watched closely. closely with, because I think if it continues to derail like this and you get embarrassed, now it's the Chiefs, so that's a good thing. I think it very much is something to keep an eye on, because Pete Carroll at his age was an interesting hire. Somebody who was older, you wonder how he would relate, how would his messaging, translate within a locker room. And when you have a performance that looks this poor and it looks like the players are not responding to you, I do think anything is on the table. And I know Tom Brady's voice is pretty important in that organization. I don't think he wants to wait around. I think he's the type that would step up and make a tough decision if it wasn't going well. I think it's about something to keep an eye on. It's too early. And again, I don't think any coach should get fired after 1 year. But if this thing does come apart, I do wonder if the Raiders would be one of those that would be potentially in that mix.
Yeah, I don't know that this is one and done, right? Because if you look at, Pete has a history of reclamation projects. And the first year, you got to take your lumps. And then he's going to overturn this roster. I think when his first year in Seattle, him and John Schneider had over 200 transactions of just bringing guys in until they got the right group of guys in there. So I think this is going to be a little bit of that. Where I want to say the real question is we talk about the defense, and I think that's probably just a lack of having players
talent.
To fit. Yes. But this offense, you bring in Chip Kelly, who's creative guy, who's has this ability. We saw what he did when he was calling plays for the Eagles,
right?
And how they stretched the field horizontally, these big open voids, and he had players in there that can. You don't see that in this Raiders offense, and so this Raiders offense is like, where's the creativity in terms of being able to scheme guys open? If Geno is struggling hitting the open man, then why aren't we scheming guys open to build some of that confidence in there? And I just hadn't seen that out of this Raiders offense.
Get the ball to Genti. I mean, you drafted him as high as you drafted him. He had 6 carries today. 6. You got to get him the football. I mean, get him in space. Get him in the passing game.
He had 6 carries on 30 plays.
Right.
Yeah, you only do so much there.
Even so, maybe you have more if you get him the ball. Get him the ball. And Geno is not playing very well. And we talk about a team that has a quarterback issue. The Raiders have a quarterback issue.
Yeah.
And I wonder if he fits with what Kelly wants to do. I mean, he's a little bit more.
He was their
mobile
hand-picked choice, though.
I know. Yeah.
I will say, shout out to producer Jack. Pete Carroll went 7-9 his first year in Seattle. They ended up winning the division that year, and they went on to the playoffs. So there is still some hope. But
not for this team this year, I can promise you that.
It does feel pretty bleak. I also will add, as we go into break here, it was the 93rd win between Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And believe it or not, this was Andy Reid's first ever regular season shutout. He has done it in the postseason, but never done it in the regular season. So shout out to Andy Reid for finding ways to continue to get in the record book. All right, time for another timeout here on Game Day Recap. When we come back, America's team is back. And unfortunately for Jayden Daniels, he might not be back. Some injury concerns for the Commanders as they lose big to the Cowboys. We'll talk about it when you come back. Welcome back to Game Day Recap. Take a look at this. The Cowboys offense puts up 44 points. The Cowboys defense gives up 22 points, but a win is a win for my boys. They get CeeDee Lamb back in the mix, and he makes a big impact. The offense, as we've talked about week after week, hasn't really been the problem. It's been the defense. For the Commanders, of course, they came into this one down a few wide receivers, and then Jayden Daniels gets hurt in the second half. Marcus Mariota tries to come in and salvage things, but as you can see, it is a win for the Cowboys and a loss for the Commanders.
Haley, I think you're going to like this. I think this is the most explosive offense in the NFL, especially when you get CD back. You got Pickens on the outside. You got Javonte Williams carrying the football. You got Ferguson at tight end. You have weapons all over the place. And you have Dak executing at an MVP level from the quarterback position. If they could just find an ounce of defense, this team might be able to do something on the back end of the season. Well, that remains very much in question. But I think Dak, it could be one of those similar situations last year where Joe Burrow elevated himself into the MVP conversation on a very bad football team. That should be the way it is, because Dak needs to be getting some love for how well he's playing the position.
It's interesting, too, because this whole time we were watching this game, I mean, it was a 20-point game going into the fourth quarter, and yet all of us sat there and said, is this over? We don't know if it's over, and that's because of this Cowboys defense. But it kind of felt like the second Jayden Daniels got hurt, you immediately saw him grab at the hamstring. He told Dan Quinn he wants to go back in the game. They kept him out. He's going to have an MRI tomorrow. Concerns, though, for the Commanders going forward, especially when you look at that schedule and Jayden Daniels with some question marks.
Well, here's what I'll say. It's not just Jayden Daniels. You're down your top 3 wide receivers. Now, when Marcus Mariota had to step in, he stepped into a situation because he still had those weapons out there at wide receiver. And so now you no longer have that. And so who is this offense going to run through? If those top 3 receivers aren't there and Jayden Daniels isn't there, what does this offense look like? And so now is it going to be, heavy Bill Krosky-Merritt in that way? And is that enough to win you a football game? And then you flip over. And Pete and I, we talk about this all the time with this Commanders team, like the defense. Like this is supposed to be a defensive team to a degree, and we hadn't seen a ton out of this defense in terms of being able to get stops, being able to get sacks, being able to turn the ball over and create turnovers. We just hadn't seen that out of this Commanders team.
By the way, your father played on the Giants back in the day when they had a player named Toast Patterson. Remember Elvis Patterson? Well, they got Toast Lattimore on this team. My God.
He had a tough day.
He's had a tough year. I mean, he's a problem.
Rand, let me ask you this before we move on. I'm looking at the Commanders' schedule, and they're at the Chiefs next, and then they host the Seahawks, they host the Lions before then playing the Dolphins in Spain. I'll be at that game, and I kind of feel like I don't want to be there at this point. Broncos, Vikings. What's the upside if Jayden Daniels cannot go, let's say, for the next 2 weeks? It's a hamstring injury, so you don't know, but let's say he's out for the next 2 weeks. You've got the Chiefs, the Seahawks, and then the Lions. What are you thinking?
Well, yeah. Pete says Ofer.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you better shorten the game.
Okay.
Is your best bet. And again, we don't know. I think Deebo Samuels was going to be it was going to be touch and go as to whether he was going to be able to play. We'll see if he's able to play this upcoming week. But you better shorten the game because with Marcus Mariota, and I appreciate the way he's been able to step in, and he's played well as the backup in terms of in this offense. However, you can't get in a shootout with these teams because these teams that are coming up can score a ton of points. So I think it's one of those situations you better shorten the game and keep it a low-scoring game, at least give yourself a chance to compete.
Going to get scary in a hurry. The Packers, Pete, every week it seems like we're trying to find reasons to rationalize why they're a good team, and we have in the rundown here, they survived the Cardinals. This is a Cardinals team that played with Jacoby Brissett behind center. They've had a handful of injuries. How are you feeling about the Packers right now?
The same way the Colts survived the Cardinals last week at home.
Yeah, they did. You're right.
I mean, so it's look, we haven't seen the best of the Packers yet. Today they had 6 sacks. We saw the best of Micah Parsons today. He had 3 sacks. He had 4 tackles for loss. He had 5 quarterbacks hits, and they went after the quarterback. They played without Devontae Wyatt and Lucas Van Ness on that defensive line today. We have not seen the best of the Packers on either side of the ball. When Christian Watson gets back, and I know I keep talking about him, and he's eventually going to get back in there and playing, he's a difference maker as a wide receiver because he can stretch the field. And right now, they don't really have that field stretcher. Once they get him going, get him back, then the offense starts to be more productive throwing the football.
How are you feeling about Jordan Love?
I don't think he's been asked to really do that much. I mean, you look at his numbers today, it was, very pedestrian in terms of throwing the football. And I think at some point, he's another one of those guys that's going to have to start throwing the ball down. 29 attempts, 179 yards. It's got to be better than that down the field. And that's where Christian Watson, when he comes in, he helps open things up. We talk about the Chiefs opening things up. He'll open up the tight ends. He'll open up Golden. I think Golden will start getting more vertical. We haven't seen the best of the Packers, and they're 4-1-1. And when you really look at it, they could have lost a lot of those games, but they could have easily have won all those games, too.
Yeah, it's been a weird year for sure. We thought that this was going to be the most dominant team, and yet they're finding themselves late in the game having to claw and scratch. Interesting NFL narratives here in Week 7, but it has been so much fun. To this point, we're going to continue the fun here on Game Day Recap because it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Winners and Losers. Did Jalen Hurts do enough today to have someone pick him as their Week 7 winner? You'll have to stick around to find out. Time to wrap things up here on Week 7 of Game Day Recap. Want to give you a quick peek at the Sunday Night Football game at the half. It is the 49ers leading the Falcons. Rand, interesting how we got to this point, though. What have you thought about this game to this point?
It's just kind of been back and forth. You had some turnovers. The Niners turned the ball over. Mac Jones threw an interception. But then to end the half, the Falcons hit a shot down the field that got them in scoring position. But then Penix gets an intentional grounding call with 10 seconds left, and they're out of timeouts, which was a 10-second runoff, which took potential points off the board. Now let's see how the Niners' history is being able to finish the half with the ball and then come out and score the second half to get that early lead.
We will have to wait and see who wins this one, but it is time for our Game Day Recap, Week 7 winners and losers. We know the drill at this point. We are starting with our guy, Pete Prisco. Pete, give me your winner today.
It's the Indianapolis Colts. I said all week it was a proving game to me. If they went out and beat the Chargers, I would be a believer, and I'm a believer. 33 points a game they're averaging. I mean, they scored, at one point, they scored touchdowns. It ended on the field goal at the end of the half, but 12 straight offensive drive touchdowns. Think about that. They're incredible. I love what they're doing. The offensive line's been great. Daniel Jones is in the MVP conversation. Jonathan Taylor in the MVP conversation. And for me, they are certainly the biggest surprise, and they are my winner today.
I don't know if you remember, but you crumpled up that paper earlier and you asked if we had any hot sauce.
Nice.
If you would put it on your paper and eat your words.
Yeah,
so this is
I am a man of my word.
He's going to do it.
Are you going to eat the paper?
I'll chew it. I'm not going to swallow it.
There you go.
Pause.
That's some hot stuff, too, man.
I was not expecting us to go there, Rand. Let's keep it going. Who's your winner and why is it Pete Prisco?
I have to follow that. No, I'm going with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, he had a heck of a day today. Over 300 yards passing. He had 3 touchdowns, and he finished with a perfect passer rating, especially for a struggling offense in terms of throwing the ball.
Well, you should eat your words. What you said about him in the green room earlier today.
90 seconds, we got to go
Dak
quick.
Prescott, his 40th game with 3 or more touchdown passes. 3 times this season they've had 40 points or more in a game. I think Dak Prescott is one of the more underrated quarterbacks. When he is healthy, he is elite in the NFL. If they get a little bit of defense, this Cowboy team could do something.
I love hearing that. I'm also going to continue the quarterback conversation. I'm going Drake May as my winner. He continues to grow into the franchise quarterback they need. Over 90% passing completion as well. He is doing good stuff. Let's get to the losers. My loser today is the Los Angeles Chargers. You can't lose 3 of 4, especially when you start the season the way you did. So my loser is the Chargers. Danny, who you got?
My loser is Tua. My loser is Tua. I think they should think about benching him for Quinn Ewers. It would be one way to salvage what's left of a broken locker room, to show them that you treat Tua just like everybody else. Tua 3 picks. It looks like he's mailed it in.
Jacksonville Jaguars. You cut back-to-back losses after a big win against the Kansas City Chiefs, and you talk about a team that has been playing undisciplined. 13 penalties this week, 10 penalties last week. Can't have it. They have to learn how to win.
I took the low-hanging fruit. I'll take the Jets and the Raiders. Their quarterbacks are a disaster. Both of them are, whether it's Tyrod Taylor, Justin Fields, Geno Smith, they're all playing bad. And the coaches, by the way, the coaches should not be fired right now, but they're both on notice.
Yeah.
This was one of the more spicy shows that we had.
That was really spicy, by the way.
Today.
It's pretty good. I might have to get me some of this.
Why don't you take it home with you? You can put
For
it on
all the
whenever
other
you
things
want.
I have to eat later on in the season for saying stupid stuff.
That's going to do it for Week 7 of Game Day Recap. Hey, a round of applause for Danny Kanell jumping in once again. Danny steps in so seamlessly.
You're only close to being as long-winded.
We will see you guys next week on Game Day Recap, 8:20 Eastern, right here on CBS Sports HQ.